No World War III, and humanity joins Galactic Community of Peaceful Worlds. That's Xico Xavier's 2019 prophecy, Moots David Wilcock's outdated 1981 Law of One prophecy. As of September 12th, 2021, David Wilcock is peddling an outdated 1981 Law of One, Book 5 prophecy of end times, World War III, and invasion of continents that was mooted explicitly by a July 19th to 20th, 2019 prophecy that no World War III would occur and humanity would join a galactic society of peaceful worlds. That July 19th to 20th, 2019 prophecy by Brazilian medium Xico Xavier source Emmanuel explicitly discarded the Law of One outdated end times prophecy. Following a 50-year period from July 19th, 1969 to July 19th, 2019 prophesied that was completed without the outbreak of World War III. Chico Xavier sold 40 million books in his lifetime and donated his profits to charity because he held that his source, Emmanuel, and other sources were the author of his books. So please sit back and objectively listen to this presentation. And then in your mind, energize the prophecy of Xico Xavier. No World War III, and humanity joins the galactic community of peaceful worlds. Thank you. I'm Alfred Lambremont Weber. Greetings, I'm Alfred Lambremont Weber with a presentation on a positive timeline prophecy. No World War III, and humanity joins the Galactic Federation of Peaceful Worlds. And this is the Xico Xavier prophecy, which came into being over the weekend of the 19th to 20th of July, 2019. And synchronistically in that time, just around that time was July 24th, 2021, July 25th, 2021, and July 26th, 2021. The Mayan calendar new day, July 25th, 2021, was the day out of time. It's a day where Mother Earth, the creator of the universe, the spiritual plane, and our soul are reflected and celebrated and thanked. All lessons of life that we have learned during a Mayan year. It is the day of union and love with Mother Earth for all that she has helped us during the Mayan year. If you have the predisposition to synchronize on a daily basis, which you can, we're now, if you go to Exopolitics TV and also to TRUETUBE.INFO, you'll see on a monthly basis the Mayan calendar moons. We're now covering them with a maestra in the Mayan calendar. You'll see that the Mayan energies can give you sort of directions to connect with the mission of your soul, where you can realize the deeper meaning that days like the day out of time has. It's also called the Green Day. And the Green Day works as a mini prediction of what is going to happen in the following year. So in a way, we can take the full gestalt of what happened with the fulfillment on 1920, July 2019, And July 25th, 2021, what is happening for the rest of the Mayan year. And essentially, the core of this year, which is the year of the electro-yellow seed, is for good verbal and spiritual communication, your intuition and emotions. Rely on your intuition and emotions, which will help you attract the reality that you and your soul want. So it's something you want to go into your soul, go into your intuition and your emotions that will help you attract the reality that you want. Now, we want to come here and bring something to the attention of everyone, not in a critical way, but just in a reality checking way. This is David Wilcock, who is an eminent author. He has 2 New York Times selling books. I've read all of his books. There's a book about him, which says that he believes he may be the reincarnation of Edgar Cayce. I was the keynote speaker at the 100th anniversary of Edgar Cayce's birth in St. John the Divine Cathedral in New York City. My book, The Age of Cataclysm, published by G.B. Putnam's, was the first book that integrated modern seismology and geology with the Earth changes predictions of Edgar Cayce. It came out in 1974 and was published in Japan, Japanese, it was in all the airport bookstores, etc. But the reason why I bring David in this is that on September 12th, 2021, a couple of years after the fulfillment of the Xico Xavier prophecy, this is sort of an anomaly. David came out as I was preparing to record this for the Galactic Wisdom Conference, came out and brought publicly one of the prophecies in book 5 of the Law of One, which my friend Win Free has introduced me to, the Law of One, a prophecy which was published in book 5, sort of published after the first 4 books, was published in 1981, which predicted there is going to be a World War III. Great portions of your continent and the globe in general might be involved in a type of guerrilla warfare. There's another one, which I don't have here, but it says the world is going to be in war. This came out in 1981, which was before the fulfillment of the Xico Xavier prophecy, okay, which came out at the Jesus level. It came out at the Emmanuel level. And again, David put out on September 12th, the prophecy goes on to say there would then be what those whom you would call Russians hope to be a bloodless invasion of their personnel in this and every land deemed valuable, meaning that there would be an occupation of, David did an interpretation that it would either be Chinese troops or UN troops that would occupy the North American continent. In other words, things that are very scary and part of a World War III scenario. And then went into, let me go, and again, this is part of the book 5, Law of One, 1981 prophecy, the major use of psychotronic weapons. Well, that is going on. I can tell you that because I was first hit with psychotronic weapons at the inner ring of the Pentagon when I was meeting with an Assistant Secretary of Defense after meeting at the Jimmy Carter White House and getting approval for the Carter White House, 1977 Carter White House extraterrestrial communication project, which is all in my disclosure project affidavit. But what led me very curious, and kind of the synchronicity of it, is that I was preparing to present this Xico Xavier presentation at the Galactic Wisdom Conference in September of 2021. And I got an email from David saying, I'm going to present this war prophecy. So I waited for it, and it's, oh, this is an old prophecy. This is 1981, and hey, man, get with the program. That's old stuff. And I just, David is very powerful, very brilliant person. And I'm not sure, he's sort of been out of touch from our wing of exopolitics for various reasons. And I wanted to send this message to his following and put it out there in the airwaves that in fact, there are, let me just go back here, that in fact, as of July 19th and 20th, 2019, there is no World War III. And that comes down from the level of the Christ. So here is the beginning of the presentation that formally goes into that. There are on the internet many prophecies about many people. Many of the prophecies are just false and trying to gain attention and playing on the credibility of the masses. At the same time, there are prophets and which are serious, such as Edgar Casey and others. And we're showing you portraits here. In this video, we're going to show you the prophecies of the important prophecies, which relate to the quote end times as this is zone 0 with the first. And these are the prophecies of Chico Xavier. Francisco Xico Xavier was a medium Brazil who lived between 1910 and 2012 in the city of Minas Gerais, Brazil. Even though his work was not only in Brazil, in the whole world. In his whole world, he wrote 450 books, and he sold 40 million books that were translated into 30 languages, and he didn't take a cent for them because he said that spirit was the audience, and he did not receive any royalties. Rather, he gave all of the sales of the 40 million books to nonprofit organizations helping people, because he said he was not the author of these books, but the interdimensional spirits who told all of the words in these books. Chico Xavier, in his life, he dedicated his world to healing, spiritualism, and the benefit of the community. And he predicted man's landing on the moon in 1938. At the last stages of his life, he was in a hospital of Uberaba in Brazil, and he had pneumonia at age 91. So he thought he was going to die. 30th of June, as BBC Breakfast was covering him on the news, a mysterious light came down in front of the hospital into Chico Xavier's hospital. And you can ask, what is the light and what window did it go into? It went into Chico Xavier's window. And Chico Xavier was asked if he saw the light or something strange, and he asked yes. He asked yes. That was the soul of my mother asking me to be patient, and it was the soul of my guide Emmanuel. The two lights. After this event, Chico Xavier had a miraculous and unexplainable healing and was completely healed from what was a almost deathly thing. Emmanuel, his spirit guide told him that he should then spread two prophecies that he made in 1986, but he had not yet spread. And this was 1991. And he should make these two prophecies very public because they were very important. And we're going to talk about those two prophecies now. These were 1986 prophecies made very public in 1991. Number one, man will create World War III, but it will be nature that will stop World War III with volcanic eruptions and earthquakes, which will completely destroy the northern hemisphere. That's prophecy number one. That was the prophecy number one, made in 1986 and made very public in 1991. Chico Xavier saw that. Another 1986 prophecy that he said in 1991 is that Brazil and the Southern Hemisphere will be the will be the breadbasket of the world, and also oil was discovered off of Brazil, and in 2 decades, he said, there will be huge amount. And in 2007, there was a huge 8 billion barrels of oil were discovered off of the Sea of Brazil, and in 2007, Brazil gave this to Shell, ExxonMobil, and that could have been Chico Xavier's 1986 prophecy. So this is all part of if there's a World War III, then, and then a third prophecy said that that the United Nations and the northern powers will occupy the countries of the Southern Hemisphere if there's a third World War, which will destroy the Northern Hemisphere. That's what will happen to this planet if there's a third World War. And the hemisphere, the Southern Hemisphere nations will be taken over by the powerful nations of the Northern Hemisphere. Now, here is the last prophecy that we're coming to, because this is a different prophecy from the other ones and is very, very serious. And it's very interesting and very strange. Because this prophecy is coming up now. Here, Xico Xavier gives a specific year and date for its fulfillment. Prophecy of Xico Xavier made in 1986. Jesus Christ Lord gave 20 years from 1969 until July 2019. See, July 2019 is the limit date. And this is the date, last date into which the earth can enter into the community of nations, where we can integrate, earth can integrate itself into the community of nations. In this prophecy, says that interplanetary vehicles will land, and people will see them, inviting us to join into a community of nations, and people will see them. And from this point, and from a certain point of view, and there's a second option here, which Xico Xavier says. In the first prophecy, Xico Xavier said that there was an option that humanity could start World War III, but there's an option. If humanity by July 2019 had not started World War III, the change of all changes will take place, and humanity will be contacted to be part of this change. On part of this, Xico Xavier devoted a whole year after 1991 to broadcast these prophecies worldwide, and took 1 year from 1991 to broadcast these worldwide. At the end of that year, in 92, he went to the same hospital where that light came, and he asked the nurse, how did Brazil do in the World Cup? The nurse said Brazil won, and with that, Xico Xavier put his hands in his chest and he died. Now, is Xico Xavier correct? Comment with us, subscribe here with us. And this is, thank you. This is Zone 13. Thank you. There are on. Okay, so let's fast forward then to July 19th and 20th, 2019. I was then covering a conference at the Pine Ridge All Nations Lakota, where there was happening at the Pine Ridge reservations, and there was a Lakota Sundance happening. And as it turns out, ET spacecraft came in over that Sundance on July 19th and 20th 2019, as well as on over the rest of the planet. And so we will cover that during this presentation. First of all, in the Pine Ridge Reservation, Lakota territory, ET extraterrestrial spacecrafts hovered over a sacred Lakota Sundance, performed over the July 19th to 21, 2019 weekend at the All Nation Center, Pine Ridge Reservation, Lakota territory. And that was a confirmation of the prophecy of the Brazilian prophet and medium Xico Xavier, who was followed by millions of adherents worldwide. Just a day before Xico Xavier's prophetic fulfillment on July 19th, 2019, the Mexican researcher Francisco Arteaga and myself had discussed the implications of the final prophecy of Brazilian medium Chico Xavier, who in his 92-year lifetime made multiple scientifically validated prophecies about future events, and who donated all of the profits of his 40 million book sales worldwide to charity, because the books were written, according to him, by his interdimensional sources. And he left a major prophecy, Xico Xavier's prophecy, that the universal higher powers gave 50 years of grace to Earth, starting on July 19 to 20, 1969. And if the Third World War had not started by July 19 to 20, 2019, Earth would join a peaceful galactic society of worlds. Coincidentally, the reported moon landing, of course, which is, there's some controversy about that, occurred on July 20th, 1969, at the start of the 50-year periods of the Xico Xavier prophecy. Now, the ET UFO sightings, as part of the July 19th and 20th prophecy, Xico Xavier also prophesies UFO sightings around the world to accompany the fulfillment of the prophecy of the July 20th prophecy. And we had ET UFO craft sighted over the Lakota Sundance at the Pine Ridge Reservation, which was the fulfillment of the explicit terms of the Chico Xavier prophecy. Now, what we're going to see next, these are some of the photos of one location of the UFOs, which was close to the Pine Ridge Reservation at the Nebraska state line. Shannon Kelly photographed all of these UFOs on July 19th and 20th as part of the fulfillment of the Xico Xavier. We also have UFO expert Ananda Bosman, who has gathered many images of the worldwide UFO flaps. So what we're going to do is just technically, we have to go to a different share screen just because of the technicalities of the share screen. So let me go to that one here. And here is part of Ananda Bosman's presentation, which you can see. He talks about the U.S. Navy presentations, multiple destroyers being swarmed by UFOs on that night. These are the actual Navy UAP radar footage on the night of the 19th, 20th July of 2019, the fulfillment of the Chico Xavier prophecy. And this is from New York, Clayville, Mastic Beach, the Australia lights, the Canada lights, Costa Rica, San Jose, Greece, Athens, Russia, Yekaterinburg, UK, England, Burgess Hill, the Florida lights, Tampa, Alabama, Coca, California, Valley Village, Florida, Key Biscayne, Nevada, Newark Airport, North Carolina, Durham, the Ireland, Inch Island, County Donegal, Seoul, Korea, Florida lights, Panama City Beach, Idaho Triangle in Pontiac, Idaho, Colburn, Michigan, Tic Tac at Messick, New York, New Jersey, Black Object in Northfield, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, Utah, Argentina, Australia, Youngstown, Tasmania, Brazil, Monseñor Paulo, France lights, Paris, Germany in Cleve, Peru in Aguascalientes, Spain in Fuengirola, and Miami Beach, Alma Center, Wisconsin, Michigan, Otisville, Minnesota, Rochester, Ohio, Walbridge, Virginia, Virginia Beach, Washington, Bremerton, Florida. And so these are just a selective representation of the worldwide UFO flap that took place on the night of July 19th to 20th, 2019, in fulfillment of the Chico Xavier prophecy that there would be no World War III if after 50 years from July 1920, 1969, World War III had not broken out. Now let's go back to the PowerPoint presentation. This just has to be done for technical reasons. Here we go, and we're going back to the PowerPoint, and so here we are. So now we're going to listen to an interview with Ananda Bosman, UFO expert. He was one of the anchors on the recent international UAP UFO press conference that we had on August 21st, 2021, which was in response to the Pentagon's UAP report of June 25th, 2021. So here we go. And this is Ananda Bosman. And we are looking at the July 20th, 2019 UFO portal and the 50-year prophecy of Chico Xavier that if World War III had not broken out by July 20th, 2019, we would have no World War III, and there would be a worldwide UFO flap around July 20th, 2019. And we have here a participant in that envelope, Ananda Bosman, who will, on August 21st, will be leading a global press conference, but who will bring us into the reality of the fulfillment of the Chico Xavier prophecy. Ananda Bosman, over to you.
Thank you, dear Alfred. It's always an honor and a pleasure, and to be working with you now in concierto. We are a trio in this effort of press conferences. And thank you. It was you who brought this awareness of Xico Xavier and his 50-year prophecy into light. As we are doing a global multi-metropolitan press conference, which is the international civilian and academic ufological community's response to the Unidentified Aerial Phenomenon Task Force's preliminary report which I thoroughly covered on June the 26th, and we touched upon last week. It is of essence to note that the report mainly focused on UFO activity from 2019 onwards. It was in March of 2019 that they got the equipment installed, but in the July window of 2019, the equipment was being tested to its limits. Hundreds of UAPs, which initially the media were calling unidentified drones, but now have been considered genuine unidentified aerial phenomena, as they could not pinpoint any source to them, appeared in the Pacific, doing all kinds of maneuvers, staying up to 2 or 3 hours parallel to the trajectory of the various naval vessels, and some of which exhibited transmedial qualities, unaffected if they were in water or out of water, and disappeared without a trace. No other Navy or military unit had any operations going on. There were deep investigations by the UAP task force through all branches of government. In our June version of the mainstream media UAP bibliography, we also quote from a source that researcher Richard Dolan obtained, a reliable source according to him, and Dolan's track record is pretty good, which stated that there was a statement in the classified report that Area 51 does work on exotic technologies. There are nuclear, there are water, hydrogen systems. A list of different exotic systems was leaked in that statement to Dolan, but that all of their test flights do not leave the premises of the Nevada test site, and that which was observed by multiple types of equipment in the Pacific was not an operation of Area 51. Of course, we know there are many other, or there are numerous other places where exotic technology of various forms and levels of classification are being tested, but it gives indication that the UAP task force was trying to identify through the different branches if there was a covert US operation taking place. The press conference that we're holding is a civilian-based one, an academic-based one. We have pointed to the 3 groups in the ufological community. The third group, of course, will continue pursuing covert black world technology behind the UAP phenomenon. Now, I was invited by Mia Ferraletto to join the Consciousness and Contact conference in South Dakota at the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation of the Lakota indigenous people. It was a beautiful gathering of many contactees, experiences, people like Whitley Strieber, Yvonne Smith, and many others. And so we each gave our presentations. I gave a presentation on the Friday, the 19th, somewhat akin to our super intelligence hypothesis, a early version thereof. And the next day we went to the Sundance. And so at the end of the morning hours, something happened. However, before I went to the Sundance, in talking with Mia and communicating with Mia, I always had this image of a UFO parked in the daylight over the Sundance, somewhat akin to what happened in Mexico, July the 11th, 1991, fulfilling a prophecy of the 5th, 6th sun by the Dresden Codex. From that particular event, which was filmed from multiple directions as people were filming and trying to capture the eclipse of that day in accordance to the Dresden Codex prophecy, multiple angles from different cities of that UFO was picked up. And this began the Mexico mega wave of UFOs, which went into fleets. Of course, the history of fleets goes back a long, long time. In our book, The Alien Presence from 1993, we already were able to list for hundreds of years of astronomer sightings of UFOs leaving Mars, Venus, crossing the sun, crossing the body of the moon. And the fleets have been seen in Nuremberg, and you can go back in history. This fleet phenomena is nothing new. And even the full fighters of World War II would take, at times, fleet conformations. So the early 50s had the fleets as well. The fleet phenomena started to then change during the 70s, and in Geneva in 1991, you start getting this triangulation of fleets with different geometrical contours and formations as a kind of alphabetic language, which has been persistent in the fleet phenomenon. The fleet phenomenon then built up in Mexico after the 7/11 event, 1991. Two fleets joining together and becoming these organic snakes in the sky, like Quetzalcoatl, the winged serpent, and various other formations, which then spread to North America and South America. So people started to discover the power of summoning the UFO and focusing out in space, having compassion, gratitude, knowing that in this compassion there will be a response, and a response comes. This is something I discovered as a young man when I was 15 after a near-death experience. And this became a nearly daily occurrence. So the Sundance in South Dakota, 2019, July 20th, I had visualized this UFO parked over it. It was just simply there. Then as we were watching the ceremonies and our group kind of dispersed with the natives, which was quite a large gathering. We were not allowed to have our phones with us, and there were other rules which we had to abide to and which we respected. So feeling the energy of the Sundance, the linking to Wonkantonka, the great creator, I went out into space with a coherent mind and heart. Laser was a clear connection, the presence was there, and I projected that image of parking over the Sundance. Several other people did their protocols with meditation, whichever their protocols were. And then the response came. The initial vehicle that appeared there was seen by members of my group to be releasing a plasma series of arms, and spheres were also released from it. By the time I saw it, the arms looked more like scattering patterns. However, later we found films not far away, just across the border from Nebraska, from Shannon Kelly, who was a friend of one of the participants, Joan Bird. And she found his footage to be very similar. I looked through the hundreds of hours of films that he has taken as a contactee. And indeed, some of the footage was identical to the object we were seeing, which was parked there for 2 hours. It wasn't at the zenith per se, it was more towards the 1, sometimes 2 o'clock position. But this would shift, so either side of the zenith. As it was taking place, Whitley Strieber was suggesting in the first 10 minutes, these could be drones. So when one has a UFO experience, one also takes in parallel logic, the paralogistics set in. So the skeptical researchers say, could this be a drone that was running? Another parallel logic I chose was, could this be Venus? This is July. There is a rare phenomenon where Venus can become visible in July in the high sun or close to the zenith. So I wanted to examine, is there a procession going on with this object? So it was extremely hot, despite that there were winds. So we withdrew to a tree, to the shade of the tree, where I could use a branch to measure if the object was processing. At first, it seemed that it was, but then after a while, it clearly wasn't. It was taking different trajectories. Someone with us in the group, Stephanie Finch, was also doing this examination. Much to her credit, she stayed there till the very, very end and watched the object take a trajectory and fly off away from the Sundance towards the All Nations Gathering Center, which is where we had our lectures. Now, only some people stayed at the UFO at the Sundance, because in the first 20 minutes, half an hour, we received word that we should all go back to the All Nations Gathering Center. I did deliver that message, but all of the group that stayed said, no, we're not going back. This was consciousness in contact, there was a UFO. And we had to see it to the end. I kind of resonated to that. I have respect, of course, for my colleagues speaking as well. I was not the driver, there were numerous drivers. So we watched that till the end, came back, continued with the conference. The next day, three of us, Kevin Briggs, David Cottrell, and myself, in the evening, it was dark, I suggested, why don't we do a protocol? We were by the teepees at the All Nation Gathering Center. We each have our different ways of getting in contact with our sources. So we proceeded to do so, some form of meditational coherence. Kevin Briggs, then, who is a contactee with communication, then decided to check in and go to sleep. David Cottrell and I remained, and we had several UFO incursions, one of which appeared directly above us, fully powered up with a beam at the 20-minute position on the clock before it. And then as it powered down, the beam went into invisibility and the object went over the All Nations Gathering Center towards the field behind. Now, looking at the Shannon Kelly movie footage with these plasma beams and the sphere attached, should that be illuminated during the night, it looks pretty similar to what we were seeing there. In other words, either the same object that we saw over the Sundance or one that is of same self-similarity. We went inside. Now, I had forgotten this. I reread through the PowerPoint of Alfred, my initial report. As we came into the All Nations Gathering Center, there was several people chatting, having a conversation about something. But all the lights were flickering in odd ways. Now, I didn't remember that because I've had so much of that in my life. It's unremarkable for me. It's a classic aspect that happens with close UFO contacts. A bit later, Rebecca Chief Eagle, who was hosting us with Dallas Chief Eagle, went to the bathroom of the All Nations Gathering Center, looked out the window, and saw the UFO with a beam aimed to the ground in the field behind. So this is the sequence of the UFOs that were seen there. There were much higher up objects also seen, and there were other phenomena that occurred. It is something I wrote down immediately when I flew from South Dakota to my colleague Param Gill, filmmaker in California, because I know that one has to write down every detail immediately after UFO events because of the memory loss that occurs by the nature of memory on this planet. So I'm glad I did that because we got the details that were necessary, which I immediately shared with Alfred and my own general mailing group. I continue to have UFO sightings in California, some of which looked like other film footages of Shannon Kelly. And when I came back to British Columbia, we were at Roberts Creek, and they continued. So my whole family continued to see this rotating like UFO, and these UFOs that blink in many places at the same time. So in those first 10, 20 minutes, we were considering it, and Alan Steinsfield came to me and said, what do you think? I said, well, I'm trying to communicate with it, and I'm familiar generally with a UFO. There is a consciousness exchange, but I wasn't getting that. The only consciousness connection was that I had the image of what was to be already in British Columbia, and that is what I projected out into space, and then it manifested that way. But when it reached 2 hours, tremendously high winds, already winds at ground level, and the higher up you go, the stronger the winds there, it held its position steadfast, slight variations around the zenith, 1 o'clock or 11 o'clock, maybe 2 o'clock position, and without appearing to be swayed by any wind. There were rumors of some drone testing by the US government and military, but the areas given were very, very far away, in another part of North Dakota and another part of South Dakota, not in that area. Interestingly, we didn't know this at the time, the UAP task force report, the preliminary report that has been released, has a great deal of focus on July 15th to July 26th, where on a daily basis, the naval vessels were receiving UAP, UFO incursions, and sometimes hundreds of them. The USS Omaha footage was accepted by the Pentagon as official footage. Some of the footages that were released were said to be genuinely of UAPs. Furthermore, radar data was also released to the public, and this was officially released. So there were high levels of UFO incursions taking place in the Pacific. But I took a rudimentary look, basically just over one day, of other UFO sightings in that window in July. And there are plenty of UFO sightings all over the world.
And so here we're back to the Mayan calendar. What is the day out of time, and why could it change your life? Or the way you lead your life, your appreciation of it. According to the Mayan calendar, July 25th is a day out of time. What does that mean? July 26th in the Gregorian calendar coincides with the celebration of the Mayan New Year, which runs until July 24th of the following year. But what about July 25th? This is so-called day out of time that was to adjust for the differences between the Gregorian and the Mayan calendar. The time of the Earth is in tune with the frequencies of the universe in the Mayan calendar. For this reason, a year lasts what for us would be 13 months of 28 days, exactly the time it takes for the Earth to make a complete turn of the sun, according to the lunar cycles, which is why 1 year in the Mayan calendar is equivalent to 13 complete moons. But if you count well, you will see that 13 months of 28 days give a result of 364, leaving one as, quote, the long lost day. On that day, the sun is synchronized as the brightest star in the sky, Sirius, and a solar revolution of the Earth begins. Sirius represents intuition, the secret sun. For this reason, that day, all the energies of the sun come together. For the Mayans, this was very special, and that is why they considered it an optimal time to prepare the soul, purify the spirit, reflect and meditate before starting a new cycle. Precisely because of the cleansing and healing rituals before Mother Earth, the day out of time is known as the Green Day. 3 circles that represent art, science, and spirituality within a large one that symbolizes culture make up the emblem of the date, which is the flag of peace. According to the Mayan calendar, now there are many who argue that the Gregorian calendar, which we use by imposition of Pope Gregory XIII, is not in sync with the time of the universe, since we count that the Earth goes by for 365 days. The result is a mismatch that affects, according to some beliefs, our perception of the environment and reality itself. If we took a calendar like the Mayan one, we could possibly begin to perceive the synchronicities that would happen to us more clearly. The day out of time is the time to celebrate life, love, peace, forgiveness, art, to remember everything in the universe is perfectly connected, and that we still have time to take a different course in our way of life. What is the day out of time, and why can it change your life? July 25th is the day out of time. On this day, a prayer is made in 7 directions in a counterclockwise direction. East, from the east house of life, may wisdom dawn upon us so we can see things clearly. North, from the north house of light, may wisdom mature among us so we know everything from within. West, from the west house of transformation, may wisdom be transformed into correct action so that we can do what needs to be done. South, from the south house of the eternal sun, may the correct action give us the harvest so that we can enjoy the fruits of the planetary being. Heaven, from the upper house of paradise, where the people of the stars and ancestors gather, may their blessings reach us now. Earth, from the lower house of the earth, may the crystal heartbeat of the planet bless us with its harmony so that we end wars. Heart, from the central source of the galaxy, which is everywhere, and at the same time, may everything be recognized as the light of mutual love. What kind of situations will the universe bring throughout the Mayan New Year? We're in the Mayan New Year of the electro-yellow seed. From July 26, 2021 to the 24th of July, 2022. The first governing energy is for you to achieve good verbal and spiritual communication with yourself and with everything around you. The second governing energy is to materialize as healthy and constructive things that are deeply linked to your heart and that give you a lot of emotional well-being and help you renew a stage in your life. And the third governing energy, in order to achieve the 2 previous energies, you have to follow your intuition and your emotions. They will help bring you to the reality that your soul wants. In other words, following your intuition and your emotions are key during this year. And the 3 purposes of the year to achieve this learning: number 1, you learn to speak or to be quiet just in time for good communication with yourself and others, so as not to make the situation worse. To learn to bring to the planet a new vision of the world that you feel in your heart, that you know, that it is possible to materialize, and that you learn to discover harmony, beauty, art, and elegance within any difficult situation that you live in your daily life, that you learn to accept yourself as you are with your defects and virtues, that you become aware that you are an artist in your own life, that you are the architect of your life, and that your life is a great work of art. Therefore, the universe will be asking you to build your life with love and dedication, so much to favorable and adverse situations that come into your life. So thank you very much. And you can find more of our insights at omniversity.us. Thank you.